O'Kelly and Drew Howard.
And welcome to the Weekend Sit and Spin here at KineticHiFi.com and the KineticHiFi.com studios, also Spreaker Web Radio. I am Nick O'Kelly. With me in the studios here, the Kinetic Hi-Fi studios, Drew Howard.
Hey, good morning.
How's it going, Drew?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing well.
I'm excited. We have a big show tonight out at Somerville, Flowertown Theater, the Charleston
right.
Improbables. Very excited for that. Had fun out there at Third Thursday in downtown Somerville. And I do want to say, downtown Somerville really is Hill Valley, I think. Like the good Hill Valley, not the one where Biff ran a casino and was married to Marty's mom and she had fake boobs. Not that Hill Valley, but like the good, wholesome Hill Valley.
Just not in California.
Yeah. It's in South Carolina.
Yeah.
But that's the vibe I get. And I'm excited because there's a new store coming to downtown Somerville that I am pumped up about. It is a Lego store, but you don't go in there and buy the Legos. They have them open. You just go in there and you build.
I'm imagining a huge pit of Legos and you just start building
Pretty
around
much.
you until it's...
You know the store downtown that's like the Lincoln Logs that's across from Charleston Place Hotel there, or right off of Market? It's like that store. You go in there and you just build. What's better than that? You just go build whatever you want to build. You can just go make weird stuff.
Well, I mean, the only thing is you don't get to keep it, I'm assuming.
No, but you can take pictures of it.
It'd be neat if they would let you keep it.
Well, then that would defeat the
refill,
purpose of capitalism.
And then they would then, refill the store. They make profit.
Look, maybe one day UNICEF will get into the Lego business, but this is not that day.
They buy it by the brick. They buy it by the brick. So if you build something, based on weight, they could charge you for it, and then it doesn't matter.
Nah, you can just go in there and you can build cool stuff. You don't have to follow the instructions. Just build whatever you want to build.
Tweet pictures of yourself with it.
Exactly.
With a Lego dinosaur.
Exactly. It's Instagram.
Very good.
Yeah.
No, Somerville's great, and I've been on that bandwagon for a long time. I don't want to call it a bandwagon because it's not. It's just a good idea. But the idea of the downtown and having people shop locally and having business owners downtown who can provide the people who live in the same community as them, rather than corporations coming in and taking over. And that's really what's unfortunate about rural, quote unquote, America, or even city America. I mean, we've grown into super cities and dregs rather than communities being able to support themselves with the downtown because it's been killed by Walmart.
Exactly. And the downtown stayed open late. There were all these vendors out there. They set up tents. Like Nuke's restaurant was giving out free samples, good food.
We have that culture pretty much throughout the Low Country, so it is nice to see, especially in Somerville and some places that have some relative money at this point, keeping up that tradition.
But tonight, Somerville's all about the Improbables. So get out there to Flowertown, check out the show, 8 p.m. It'll be a fun time.
It's neat to have those theaters as well. Flowertown, one of them, so definitely go check it out. We got a big show this morning as well, Drew, because, just in terms of there's a lot to talk about going on in the world today, a lot of important topics happening around the world. We've got crisis in the Middle East continuing, but it's growing into a situation where we're getting pulled back in once again through Syria, believe it or not. Even though we were trying to go in and destroy Syria last year, this year we're going to be protecting Syria by working with them to destroy ISIS, which is only Al-Qaeda rebranded, that we funded to begin with in the 70s.
Exactly. It's just a rebranding because people understood that Al-Qaeda is ran by the government, it's ran by the CIA, that the name literally comes from the base of operatives that the CIA had to use in the Islamic community. That's where it comes from. Al-Qaeda means the base. It's their database of operatives to use. It's on record. You can look that up. And now it's been rebranded as ISIS. Still the same flag, same rhetoric, all of that. And now they're changing it to IS. They're shortening it down to just that because people are realizing ISIS is the same thing. And again, Assad's not that great of a guy, but as opposed to what ISIS is standing for, he's a lot better. He was allowing people freedoms. He was allowing Christians to practice. He wasn't going in and beheading them. He was allowing women to go to college, to drive cars, to not wear burqas, to live a more Western style free life. And we turn our backs on that. We support ISIS last year. We give them weapons. We let them kill Ambassador Stevens in Benghazi to take the weapons from there. We have Lindsey Graham saying, well, if we don't go take out Syria and take out Assad, ISIS is going to come bomb us in Charleston. And it's all this rhetoric firing up. And now we're seeing ISIS has snuck across the border. There are sleeper cells here in America. They have the nuclear weapons from Dyess Air Force Base last year, the ones that were transferred out. And it's just a matter of time until they nuke Chicago or New York or Atlanta or a major American city. And that's on the agenda. That's what Obama wants. You
notice he's actually in his speech is calling it ISIL, too, ISIL, which I don't know ever knew where that one came from.
That must be what they're calling it on the golf courses in Martha's Vineyard.
I really don't know what to think about the tweeting and the pictures and so forth of the sleeper cells, quote unquote, here in America. Of course, I believe that it's possible with a border that's completely wide open, and that's why we've been sitting here screaming about the fact that the border is wide open. They're not doing anything about it. And now all of a sudden this week as well, you have Rick Perry indicted. And I'm not even the biggest fan of Rick Perry either, but I mean, he was saying kind of the same thing there, that, hey, the Border Patrol's 40 miles out, and we're not doing anything about it. I mean, what's going on here? At least he was giving some attention to it, and you have to wonder exactly what were the political motives behind that as well.
And even, Obama cabinet members, supporters, people that have been surrounded, like David Axelrod came out and said that this is not right to prosecute Rick Perry for doing his job. Mm-hmm. It's the governor's job, if he has corrupt officials under him, to cut their funding, to get them removed from office however he can.
Yep.
And this video of the of the DA there, the Travis County DA, she was clearly drunk out of her mind in the jail cell, threatening cops, just very emotional, embedding every sign of a drunk lady. She was 3 times over the legal limit when she was pulled over. She should have been arrested.
I couldn't believe that she wasn't fired by her own office. I mean, I just, it seems like somebody in the public eye like that, who has the power to audit other public officials and has power over other public officials, and is in the public eye so much, would be allowed to get away. That wouldn't be allowed. Can you imagine that being allowed to get away with in Lexington, North Carolina, or in Asheboro, North Carolina, where we grew up at?
Tomorrow morning, statesman was say that I was drunk and in jail all night, and y'all restrained me. That was fun.
Put your hands down.
I mean, her hair's all over the place. She's slurring her words.
Put your back against the blue board.
Congratulations, you guys. Y'all better do something quick.
She looked rough.
She's wasted.
She is wasted. There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
Get these cuffs off my arms.
Okay, as long as you're making threats, though, they're not going to come
I'm
off.
not making any threats.
You just threatened that they were going to be in jail.
Do you know what you're doing? Call Gray. I don't care if you film me.
Okay.
Call Gray. What's wrong with you people? Get the cuffs
What's
off
wrong
of me
with
now.
you?
Are we done for a moment?
Get them off. Just get them off.
Yeah, clearly drunk. He had every right to cut the funding to this because it's a very corrupt system there around Austin. Mm-hmm. It's the only Democratic area of Texas. It's very corrupt, and we see that. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're pushing through with an indictment that the rest of the country, even staunch Obama supporters like Axelrod, says that this isn't right.
No, it's not right. And Rick Perry made a great speech right before he was taken into the court to be officially indicted because he turned himself in, which I guess that was the best thing to do, although I feel like that was almost a political move on his part too, because he probably will get sympathy from the public vote to be able to run now for president. But anyway...
It was the only type of crowd control. I mean, he didn't want to walk into a liquor store, steal some cigars, and push around an Indian store clerk. That would have got him sympathy on the streets of Ferguson, maybe.
Well, and I can understand it. That's why it's a very difficult position that he was put in to begin with. So kudos to Rick Perry for handling it the way he did. But nevertheless, it's an attack on the governors, and that tells you that they are coming after us. I mean, if they're going to come after an establishment Republican governor like Rick Perry, I mean, just think about what they're planning for or what they would do to Tea Partiers and so forth as we continue to attempt to put a stop to all of this unconstitutional action that's coming forth from the presidency and from the Congress now. I mean, Obama's still weighing, and we'll get into it at some point during the day. I'm just, kind of throwing out some topics, but Obama's bringing up, but once again, bringing in 800,000 illegals for the workforce, quote unquote.
What workforce? You have Americans that are out of work like crazy. They can't get jobs. We see food lines in Miami.
I think I had a light bulb turn on this week that, Drew, what they're setting up, I think, are these corporate compounds that we see in China and so forth. I mean, think about the people who are pushing it. Those people have gone silent this week, and in fact, there is an article about that. I think I saw it in Breitbart about how those CEOs, the same ones who were pushing for amnesty, Mark Zuckerberg and so forth, Google, have now kind of gone quiet over the past week or so. But either way, I think what you see is maybe they're the ones pushing to bring in the illegal workforce. So it makes sense that they're setting up huge corporate compounds, waiting to set us up for a system like we see in China. Slave labor here in the retail market. I don't know. I don't know. It's just things to think about. But like I said, it's very interesting. Who is pushing it? Who's behind it? Why are they behind it? You know, either way, Obama bringing up executive amnesty once again for 800,000 people, and we could talk about that today as well. I mean, there's a lot going on. We've got a buildup of Russian troops on the Ukrainian border. A lot of people screaming invasion over there. Finding out a lot about who's funding the Senate and the Congress and so forth. I saw an article from Drudge saying Soros moving to save the Senate. Very interesting there. And also, Gaza now actually firing some rockets that have hit some Israeli targets. They're seeing some death toll as well. I mean, we're in a mess, Drew. The world is just, the world's in a mess. And the question now is what to do. And like I said, my biggest question is, how do we take the threats from ISIS on our towns? You know? Why is Obama not going directly after these people for their terrorist threat of the beheading of James Foley? And here's the other question, too. Is that video completely believable? Because
it's total propaganda here. It cuts off. And now the fact that you see Great Britain coming out and saying, well, if you watch the video, you're committing a terrorist act. That just tells you that there's nothing real here. It's completely faked and propagandized.
They don't show anything. It's very interesting. You know, not that I want to see it, but the point is, most of their videos are not... this is very different from most of the videos that would be released in that manner. You know, you don't see the crowd of people around the beheading going on that you would normally see. You don't see the actual action taking place. It just kind of cuts to the end with the head on top of the body there. There's not a lot of blood. So you have to ask the question, who really put this out? I mean, the guy is British. So will they be able to find it? The British Prime Minister Cameron actually left his vacation to come home when they found out that it was a British guy. So maybe they'll actually make an effort to look for him and we can get some justice. But what we saw Obama do was come off the golf course to make a speech at Martha's Vineyard and then go directly back onto the golf course. To the point now that we have people coming out in the media and the press and the White House saying, the White House defending it, saying it's how he clears his mind, and then you have Mark Levine saying that it's because he's addicted to golf, like like people are addicted to drugs, which is just excuses. I mean, the point is he's not actually a president anymore. So I don't know. Like I said, that's how, because of the video itself being propaganda, that's how I don't know how to take the threats coming from the cities too on the tweets. When you have the picture of the guy holding up the whatever the phrase is in Islam, or the Islamic phrase there in front of the old memorial building in Boston, or the flag on the iPhone in front of the White House. Who took those? You know, are those people who have come across the border because they are actually from the Middle East and they're terrorists here, or are they sleeper cells here? Are they people who think it's trendy to go out and do something like that? I mean, you do see the jihadi cool subculture infecting Britain headline on Drudge Report this morning, and that's a big thing too. I mean, suddenly you have these people committing all this evil and it's crazy, but of course you're going to have that group of people that think it's cool to see that on television, and maybe they think it's trendy to go do stuff like this. I don't know. That seems unlikely. But nevertheless, the question has to be raised, what do we, the American people, do when we see these threats? How do we take them? What do you think, Drew Howard?
again, it's the threats are ran by our government. It's ran by our institutions that are supposed to be there to protect us, so you can't really take it that serious. As long as we have a porous border, as long as we're not putting any effort into our security, we are at risk. Am I afraid of an ISIS attack here? No more than afraid of, an Al-Qaeda attack after 9/11, things like that. It's all government controlled, and it's more the afraid to take our rights. It's this lack of common sense out there. Still the emotional rhetoric you see fired up out of Ferguson, even though all the evidence is coming out showing that Mike Brown had a violent encounter with the police and it cost him his own life. It was his fault. If he had been the respectful, gentle giant that the media and his parents and Trayvon Martin's attorneys are trying to portray, then it would be a different story. But the fact, as soon as I saw that Trayvon Martin's attorneys, and they were comparing him to that, was involved, I knew that this was a BS propagandized story to stir up race relations. They failed in the Trayvon case to get a race war going because there was overwhelming evidence that he was the aggressor that night. Same thing with Mike Brown. They're going to try again. And it's going to be overwhelming evidence that he was the aggressor that night as well.
Well, like we said, it's the usual suspects lining up once again. Al Sharpton's already there. The lawyers, like you said, from Trayvon Martin is already there. The media, and it's become, the violence has slowed down in the city. So I wonder what we're going to see over the next couple of weeks. Are we going to see another one of these happen? Because it didn't necessarily work. I mean, what really happened, I think, is it backfired, and we saw more of a police state come out of this whole thing that maybe will work to awaken some people. Maybe it won't. I don't know.
Well, the police state came in as the saviors. They got up all the rhetoric. They got the people out there rioting and looting, and then the police state came in as the saviors. It's, again, just pushing the government is good narrative.
Well, I just mean at least it can bring up the conversation now for a lot of people who saw it. I think a lot of people were a little shocked to see that there really is that much military equipment in these local law enforcement divisions now. I mean, I knew that, you knew that, but I don't know if the general public on a national basis really understood when we'd sit here talking about it that it's not real conspiracy theory. There is this government 1033 program where they're disseminating old war equipment from Iraq and so forth to these local law enforcement divisions. Like I said, we're seeing it also, the talk about it went to Miami as well this week came out, and now we're seeing Miami's broke, so we're going to see something pop up there.
It's not the city of Miami that's broke, it's the people that are lining up.
No, I'm just talking about, you see the headlines in the mainstream media. You
and
see
it's
the
deceptive headlines.
Exactly.
It's Drudge Report doing bad headlines here. It's Miami City's not broke. It's the illegals coming into Miami that can't get food, that can't get jobs. Maybe if Miami would quit taking in every Cuban refugee that swims the 90 miles, then they wouldn't have this issue. Maybe we need to start deporting people instead of bringing in 30,000 more illegals. We need to close down the border. We need to get this militarized police there on the border, shooting tear gas at the illegals when they're coming over here, droning the death trains, and drone striking the death trains, blowing up the tracks, not letting them get here. We need to secure our borders, or else we're going to have an economic collapse. We're going to have terrorism sneaking in here. We're going to have more problems, but that's okay, because all anybody cares about is going and pouring buckets of ice water all over themselves. Meanwhile, California farmers can't water their crops, so we're not going to have any food supplies because too many people are out there pouring stupid buckets of ice water all over themselves. I'm sick and tired of seeing those videos. Oh, I'm raising awareness for ALS. Didn't Lou Gehrig raise enough awareness for that? Go watch his speech. Quit pouring water all over yourselves when we're in a drought and our farmers can't grow crops. You stupid, entitled, selfish pieces of crap.
Yeah, I know. I hate these videos.
Hey, why don't I take a cold beer and pour it down my pants? I'm going to raise awareness for BS that way.
No, I mean, it really is that ridiculous. But that's what I'm saying. You see all this media drumming up all of these things. You're going to see a lot more of these riots, I think, start to happen because you do have a people who are restless right now, a bad economy. The government's screwing with them.
Oh, the world's burning. I better pour a bucket of ice water on me.
Yeah. I mean, Ferguson is bad for what it is because you take a situation that should have been handled easily with evidence. The media got involved and it got blown up into something much different. And I expect to see a lot more of this. It's bad headlining, I understand that, but it's still the media getting involved in these areas that have been over-militarized with restless people, and you're talking about a third element being thrown in, of course. That's all part of it. That's my point. the Cubans and all these illegals coming into that area is causing more restlessness. We're going to see this pop off in other parts of the country, and the police don't know what to do. Because think about it, you have the media on one side of the police in Ferguson, the government on the other side, and the bystanders of the American people that don't know whose side to be on. So what are the police actually going to do the next time around when something pops off? What's their decision-making process? Do they actually fight the looters? Do they fight the press here? Do they fight the American people? Do they wait? Do they not do anything? Do they stand down? They don't know. They're so confused, and that's what the government wants. They want chaos so they can rule through chaos. We got to go to a break, and we'll be right back. It's the weekend sit and spin. There's a lot to talk about, I'm telling you. Tensions are high in America and in the world today, and we're spinning on it. We'll be right back here on KineticHiFi.com, the Sit and Spin Radio Network, Spreaker Web Radio. Stick around.
Thanks for tuning in to KineticHiFi.com. Stay tuned in. Thanks. Hey, there's no shortage of folks out there who claim to be website designers, graphic artists. It seems like every day you hear about a new social media firm promising to optimize your website and social media visibility. What you may not know is that very few of these folks have the experience and talent necessary to fulfill their lofty promises. As a small business owner, you know every dollar spent needs to have an impact, and there's simply no better way to set your business up for success than to trust your online needs to Charleston's premier full production service, Advent Designs. Advent Designs has a history of success and customer satisfaction which is unmatched, and you can rest assured that your investment will see outstanding returns. Whether you need an intuitive new website, an eye-catching logo, a powerful new banner, or comprehensive social media campaign, Advent Designs is ready to help. Call Advent Designs today at 843-298-1619. That's 843-298-1619. Or visit the website at advent-designs.com. Advent Designs, the power of perfection.
Still confused about the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare? We can help. You may qualify for a reduced premium. We can help. The deadline is March 31st, so call us, Sam and Larry Shirley, at 442-4956. It costs no more to have an agent assist you. Doctor and hospital networks have changed. We can help. Again, March 31st is the deadline. Sam and Larry Shirley, 442-4956. Have a happy and healthy new year.
Thank you for listening to KineticHiFi.com Community Radio.
Yeah, the ice bucket thing really is interesting because that is something that got started, if you really think about it, by celebrities and even in some situations politicians. Not that I care at all about it because I don't. Like you said, it's actually relatively frustrating for me to see that, especially, like you said. In fact, I saw a meme at some point on Facebook that showed people doing, like a whole group of people doing it at one time on one half of the picture, and then on the other half they were giving a cap full of water to a child who looked like probably in Africa or something. Mm-hmm. Point being, this is how I think decadent really our society has become, where you can get on a videotape and in order to get people to donate, you challenge them to pour a bucket of water on their head. I mean, it's crazy. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make any sense at all. And I just wonder where it came from. Why would someone ever want to come up with that when there really are real problems in the world? But, you know, then you see all these distractionary tactics that happen in the media and so forth that keep us from paying attention to what's going on in Ferguson. from paying attention to what's going on in the Middle East and with ISIS and so forth. And maybe that is probably what drives us to be confused when they change the name to ISIL and IS and so forth. I did notice that Breitbart had an article about how Obama's speech about the beheading of James Foley actually had some fraudulent statements in it about Sharia law, and it was pretty interesting because it really does, I think, highlight the fact that his speeches are directed at us and assuming that we don't know what's going on. For example, he declared, it says in this article in Breitbart, quote, "No faith teaches people to massacre innocents. But actually, the authoritative Islamic doctrine or ideology known as Sharia explicitly calls for violent jihad, excuse me, to force infidels to submit to Islam, and as the Quran puts it, quote, to make them feel subdued." And he also sought to reinforce the notion that because ISIL's, quote, victims are overwhelmingly Muslim, the group's terrorism has nothing to do, with Islam. In fact, practically from Islam's inception, innumerable Muslims have been massacred as well by their co-religionists over such matters such as Sunni Shia differences concerning fine points of theology, so on and so forth. So anyway, like I said, it's just interesting to point out that even his statement right after that happened is relatively fraudulent. They expect you, I suppose, not to know what's really going on with that religion to gain sympathy over the whole thing. But I think it...
Well, it's the same. It ties in very similar to what we're seeing in Ferguson. Nobody gets outraged about Chicago and the fact that there are 20 people shot every weekend in Chicago.
Right.
6 of them die every weekend. Nobody gets upset about that. In fact, we see articles saying that there's no such thing as black-on-black crime. That's a myth. Mm-hmm. And it's basically the same thing they're saying there. Well, they normally just kill other Islamic people, other Muslims, so it's okay. Never mind the fact that they're blowing up Christian churches, that they're beheading Christians, that they're destroying tombs, that they've blown up some of the oldest Christian communities in Syria and Iraq in existence.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that they're crucifying people who've converted to Christianity from Islam.
Yeah.
Never mind that it's an attack on that. It's, well, they're mostly killing Muslims, so they're not bad. And it's the same deal, in Chicago. If blacks kill blacks, it's fine. A white police officer, justified or unjustified, kills a black kid, and all of a sudden there's riots everywhere. Everybody has to go out and get sneakers and TVs.
Mm-hmm. Right, misdirection in the media because the public doesn't really have all the information anyway. That's really why it is an info war, Drew. It really is that. But how do we respond? I wonder what do we do in this situation with this beheading out there? Because at the same time, what does the public think about America in general when we have a president that makes a statement about something like that and then goes back and starts playing golf? So, what should the retaliation really be? Because we the people need to, if this is coming from our government, we need to retaliate against them continuing to pull this, So, like I said, I don't know. I just wonder should we respond to something when we see that come out in a public way that is possibly fraudulent. We saw that the ISIS flag was flown at a Tunisia soccer match as well. We're starting to see them pop up all over the place. And that's what's really amazing. We talked about how it's the rebranding. It's the same flag as Al-Qaeda was flying. But you see here this picture of a football crowd in Tunisia holding this massive ISIS flag on Twitter. And they're being allowed to continue putting all this stuff out on social networking. Even though it is a crime, according to the British government, to watch the beheading video that's been put out on social networking. So if they are here in America, it's I'm just not sure. I'm not sure what we're gonna see. Anyway, update: ISIS threat on Chicago, as we were saying. That's in CBS Local. Ominous tweet connects ISIS threat in Chicago. I just want to back some of the stuff we're saying up with articles, but many terror organizations referred to Chicago as Obama Town. Said CBS 2. under President Obama, the U.S. took out Osama bin Laden, blah, blah, blah. In the meantime, the U.S. government on Friday issued a security bulletin to all U.S. law enforcement in light of the overall threat posed by the Islamic State. The ominous post on Twitter, purportedly from somebody connected with Islamic State, shows a photo of the Old Republic Building, 307 North Michigan Avenue in Chicago, and the White House. And, of course, the text reads, "We are in your state, we are in your cities, we are in your streets. Your goals are, or you are our goals everywhere." So we saw that head-written note on June 20th. And the security bulletin issued Friday cautioned that there is no known threat to any particular U.S. cities. Even though you have Chuck Hagel is the one that's running around saying, get ready, this is going to happen. The White House coming out saying it could pivot into a 9/11 style attack. From the National Review, the White House official told reporters Friday, when you see somebody killed, quote, in such a horrific way, that represents a terrorist attack. That represents a terrorist attack against our country, against an American citizen, and I think all of us have the Foley family in our thoughts and prayers. And, the White House is the one saying that, but Obama goes directly back onto the golf course. And he even came home, like we were talking about last week, spent money to come back on Sunday through Tuesday or whatever it was, spent taxpayer dollars to fly back in the middle of the vacation instead of canceling this thing and coming back and doing something about it, drafting some kind of response to this. But that, I think, is what proves that this is total terrorist theater, total propaganda designed and set up to fearmonger and freak out the American people, even though the media is not really even freaking out about it, I don't think. I mean, we see, Drudge putting up the headlines. We see Breitbart putting up the headlines about Chuck Hagel and so forth. But, Fox News and all are still relatively committed to this Ferguson thing, even though that seems to be calming down some now.
Well, the facts are coming out. I mean, the police are starting to release the information that's showing that Brown was the aggressor. And you pick a fight with the cops, you're going to die. Mm-hmm. That's why it's called suicide by cops.
Yeah, they finally sent the National Guard home, though, as well. So that was, I think that's at least progress in the right direction there. But hopefully the investigation is going to actually be fair. I mean, Eric Holder's office is the one running the whole thing. So, who knows?
Yeah, that's going to really be fair. They want the DA to recuse himself because he has a family history where his dad was a cop and was killed in the line of duty and things like that, so they feel that the DA can't be fair. But Eric Holder's out there saying, well, I'm Attorney General, but I'm also a black man, so I understand what it feels like. I was pulled over in New Jersey once and stopped.
I did see that.
When's the conversation going to come up about the fact that it's not a race issue as it is a cultural issue? Stop acting like criminals.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because there's a shooting doesn't mean you can break down in Lord of the Flies.
Exactly. Stop acting like criminals. Start raising good family values in your community again. Don't let the government be your daddy out there. When are you going to take responsibility? Oh, I'm sorry that Obama sits there and says that the black community doesn't have to take responsibility for any of their actions. It's not their fault. But when are you going to take responsibility? When are you going to step up and be human beings? Mm-hmm. When are you going to quit saying, what do I get? Give me an Obama phone. Give me Obamacare. Free things, free things, free things. I want those, George. I'm not going to go out and work for them. I'm just going to go loot the store and take them. When are you going to get some hard work? When are you going to work for what you have? Well, that's the conversation that needs to be had out of the situation, is when are you going to raise your kids to not be disrespectful and mouth off at the cops?
And again, that kind of ties into the whole thing here, because the idea behind bringing in this police state and so forth, they get everybody as dependent as possible, and that's why we say it's so important to remain independent.
And that's why that Jonathan Gentry video on YouTube went so viral, and you see it everywhere now, is because he's asking those questions. He's pointing it out.
Mm-hmm. I don't really understand the desire to be dependent on the government. Why would you want to wait for a welfare check every week? And people say, well, there's no jobs out there. I just don't think that's true. I think there are jobs out there.
What we're doing out here is not helping. Us rioting, looting, burning down donut shops and stores and everything else, liquor stores, Shanae's hair salon for the extensions, this is not helping. Us acting a fool out here because we pissed off at the police is not helping. I said this before and I said it again. Change is not going to come until we change it. You understand what I'm saying? This is not helping. Change isn't going to come until we change it. All we know how to do is march and riot and loot. This is not helping. What you guys are out here doing is not helping, and I hate to say this, but I'm going to tell you what you need to hear imposing to what you want to hear. All we know how to do is police and white folks for our actions. That's all we know how to do is blame police and white folks. They mistreating us. They beating on us. Oh, slavery still exists. Oh, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm not going to tell you we going to march, we going to do this, we going to do that. I'm going to tell you, damn it, let's change. Let's change as black people. When is this going to stop? When? How are our children supposed to grow up when we out here acting a stone fool? How are our kids supposed to grow up and we out here acting stupid? How? How? Even the book of Deuteronomy in chapter 2, verse 3, God said, we have toiled this mountain long enough. We have toiled this mountain long enough. 40 plus years they spent in the wilderness. It's been over 50 years since we sang that song, We Shall Overcome.
I mean, it's a great video. You should go online and watch it.
Well, problem is we need the entire community to feel the exact same way, and obviously they don't, or they wouldn't have started looting like they did. And then you had the people coming from out of town to basically assist with that and make it even worse.
Yeah, Al Sharpton showing up, and again, it's turn to people like Pastor James David Manning. I mean, his statements on this have been spot on, and he's still wrapped up with an actual case of police brutality where an innocent man was killed in the Eric Gardner situation that nobody wants to talk about. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to talk about that one where he was choked out by the NYPD and died for selling untaxed cigarettes.
Well, we see it constantly, and like I said,
that one makes me more upset than Mike Brown picking a fight with a police officer and getting shot, charging down the street, and everybody's like, "Oh, he shot him 6 times. That's an abuse of authority." No, he was a 6'4", 300-pound man that kept charging. They're like, well, he had a taser. He had pepper spray. He could have used that. You know what that would have done? That would have been like shooting a grizzly bear with a pellet gun. It would have had no effect. Yep. You get that. You're that big. You're that aggressive. You're that amped up with adrenaline. You just pushed around the store clerk, so your adrenaline's going anyways. Now you think you can push around this cop. If he hadn't hit him in the top of the head, the cop could have unloaded his clip, and Mike Brown would have still been coming.
Well, and like I said, this is why it is. This is the consequences of the police nationally. Acting the way that they do these days. They're hiring these thug cops, and regardless of what this situation is, I mean, I feel bad that this is blown up the way it has when the cop was probably just doing his job in this particular situation. But unfortunately, nationwide, the cops have been trained to act like this, and so you get people who get tired of it, and any little situation that goes wrong, they decide they can use that to blame the cops.
They don't use it for the cases where they should. They don't blow up over Kelly Thomas being murdered by the cops. They don't blow up over Oscar Grant being murdered by the cops. They don't blow up over Eric Gardner being murdered by the cops.
Yeah, I know.
They blow up over little Skittles Trayvon being murdered. They blow up over Thug Mike Brown after robbing a liquor store being murdered. What is wrong with society? Why aren't you blowing up over the innocent people that are being killed by cops? Mm-hmm. Why aren't you blowing up over the ones that deserve to be, the ones that should be memorialized? Why am I not seeing an Oscar Grant memorial for out there in the Bay Area for him, like I'm seeing liquor bottles and flowers and teddy bears and all kinds of other crap lining the street there in Ferguson?
Well, like I said,
why are we deifying a thug criminal and actual good people who are being mistreated and put down and killed by cops we're forgetting about?
Well, and it's because you get these tensions like this, and in these small communities where they don't want to differentiate, and understand the difference, they decide to go crazy.
Why can't we take things objectively and say, okay, Trayvon, Mike Brown, they were violent, they were aggressive, they deserve to die. Kelly Thomas was sleeping on a park bench.
Yeah, I mean,
because he was homeless.
Agree.
He didn't deserve to have the dogs turned on him and be killed. Oscar Grant was riding the subway. He didn't need transit cops to pull him off, lay him face down in there and shoot him in the back. Yeah. Eric Gardner was trying to make some money on a street corner by selling loose cigarettes. He didn't deserve to be choked out and murdered by the NYPD. Why do the ones that are truly innocent we forget about, and the thug criminals who are headed down a road of violence, death, and probably going to kill somebody else if they didn't get killed first, we celebrate and we deify and we put on shirts and hoodies, and I still have to hear, oh, Little Skittles was innocent. Little Skittles was MMA fighting George Zimmerman, bashing his head into the concrete, and he deserved to die. And to quote Samuel L. Jackson, I hope he burns in hell.
Well, it is because those are the deaths that serve the media's purpose. So the media gets involved and blows it out of proportion. That's why. That's the reason. Those others are not blown out of proportion because they don't fit the agenda. So the media doesn't attach to it. You'll see a story in the back of your local newspaper, maybe your local news covers it for 5 minutes, but that's all you're going to see for that kind of stuff because it doesn't fit the overall agenda. That's the only reason the mainstream media and Al Sharpton and all of those people showed up to Ferguson, because this fit it. And that's why they jumped on it, because before there was any evidence. They didn't even have anything to report on, technically, quote unquote, when they first got there.
Oh, he's a good boy. He's stealing cigars from a store. He's bullying people smaller than him, but he's such a good boy. He's a gentle giant. No, he wasn't. He was too passive to even play football.
They want to divide and conquer, so they want the entire population talking about how bad it is, one side or the other. That is the point. And it's very unfortunate, because that's exactly what's happened. We're sitting here talking about it right now. I mean, it is exactly what's happened. They have been very successful in dividing the country over race lines, over this issue, for this period of months, just like they did with Trayvon Martin. And you see that things have come out while that's been going on. Like we said, there was the Friday news dump is what Breitbart likes to report on every once in a while. Feds unveil new birth control mandate. That's what you were talking about earlier. They get people distracted and divided over these issues that are very simple. Ideologically, it's tragic that the kid died. Sure, I mean, anybody dying is sad, but point is, evidence is starting to show that he was the aggressor.
Yes.
So,
and again, let's look back at this year. Let's look back 5 months ago now. Let's look back 5 months ago to the Cliven Bundy situation and how everybody that showed up there was labeled terrorist, domestic terrorist, homegrown terrorist. Meanwhile, that was peaceful. You had a lot of armed people, but you didn't have any violence. You didn't have any riots. Nothing incited there. You had armed people who made the government back down. And what are we hearing out of Ferguson now? They're protesters. They're protesters, even though they're smashing windows, burning stores, burning gas stations to the ground, stealing TVs, sneakers, hair extensions, lottery tickets, you name it, whatever they can get their hands on, they're taking. Mm-hmm. But they're just protesters, is what the media labels them. Meanwhile, anybody flying a Gadsden flag is labeled a terrorist. Name one terrorist act that came out of Bundy Ranch. Mm-hmm. I'm sick and tired of it. It's this deceptive reporting that the lamestream media, that Rachel Madcow and MSNBC and even Fox News does. It's all the lamestream media. They're all just pushing two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, but you see that is the overall point. I mean, Obama was brought in to do this. I mean, that's what I keep saying. We're going to see him pass this amnesty on these illegals, and I feel like he's going to get impeached. I just think that's what's coming. And I feel like Ferguson could have happened anywhere. I just feel like they've put these thug cops in place in rural America, militarized them, given them this fake authority, and are just waiting on something like this to pop off. And when it does, that's when they ship in Eric Holder and Al Sharpton and just make it whatever they feel like making it. That's exactly what happened here, So, and like I said, luckily it is calming down now, because it could have been a lot worse, I guess. I mean, it was pretty bad for what it was. But I just, at least we didn't see mass death toll or anything like that, or bloodshed by the police there in the streets, or the people on the police, because that could have happened too. I mean, we didn't see the people come out with guns and start killing the police, and I was a little worried we'd see something like a Civil War break off right there, especially when they started bringing in the National Guard. So, thank goodness that there are good people in the media that were there covering the situation, that there are good people with good common sense who at least helped de-escalate the situation. But then it's just sickening, too, to see the new Black Panther Party take credit. Did you see the video of him talking with the head of the police about how they de-escalated the crowd? They were like, you guys need to back your police off because we de-escalated the crowd. It was our troops that were out there, troops he calls them, de-escalating the crowds. You guys just need to let us handle it. They were asking for them to extend the curfew last week, and their justification for that was because, they were helping keep the crowd in check. Of course, then there was another week of violence after he said that. Anyway, it's very sad, but like you're saying, that's why it's so important to understand what's going on overall, that this is a psyop, so that you yourself or you, the listener, don't decide to fly out there and start making trouble as well, because as much as this seems like a civil rights movement that you want to go join and be a part of for historical reasons, really it's a psyop by the government trying to get the people riled up.
And again, don't get wrapped into supporting the wrong things. If you want to be mad about police violence, be mad about police violence. Be mad about Kelly Thomas. Be mad about Eric Gardner. Be mad about Oscar Grant. Don't be mad over a criminal thug that attacks a cop getting shot. Yep. He did it to himself.
Be mad that the border's wide open and that the government's allowing ISIS to come in here and attack us.
There was a great headline I saw earlier that said the Mike Brown family again reiterates that he wasn't a violent person, but then right underneath of it, it's got the video of him shoving around the store clerk.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, really, you still want to run with this narrative that he was a good boy when you've got a videotape of him abusing somebody half his size?
Yeah, they said
that's not a good boy right there. That is a thug bully who got what he deserved.
Yeah,
there's only one way to deal with thugs and bullies.
The parents were saying no evidence that the son had an aggressive temperament.
Pushing around the store clerk, that's no evidence?
Mm-hmm. Well, and he did rob the store, too.
Yeah, he stole
that's
a
something
bunch of
that's
cigars.
not really even mentioned, is the fact that he did rob the place right before all this happened.
And the witness here, the one that's saying that he was running down the street and was shot in the back, even though all the evidence shows that he wasn't shot in the back. Mm-hmm. Forensic reports show that he was shot from the front. The witness that completely lied to cops was an accomplice in the robbery. Mm-hmm. His testimony can't be taken at face value.
Yeah, exactly.
But everybody wants to hold that up. Oh, he was shot in the back. He had his hands up. Hands up, don't shoot. You see that as they're saying now.
Yeah, they're actually jamming to it as they're walking down the road, marching. They've got a drum beat, and they're like chanting it in a, rhythmic way, I suppose. Hands up, don't shoot. It's sickening. It's a misunderstanding of the whole situation. It's people jumping on a bandwagon. You see real tribal culture right there, where
absolutely
you divide the people and they jump on the bandwagon. You get them to do whatever you want. They don't even care that they look like complete fools looting this place, looting their own neighborhood. They're the ones that have to wake up this week, now that the violence is over, to a relatively destroyed neighborhood.
And then you wonder why there's not stores and businesses there.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
You wonder why corporations don't come into those neighborhoods, because they don't want to pay the insurance. They don't want to pay for when you're going to get upset and loot. You can't get grocery stores with fresh produce. Well, maybe if you quit looting the local market every time you turn around, maybe then you'd be more willing to have businesses come into your neighborhood.
It's weird. Weird stuff. Weird things are happening. It's like the song Strange Things in Toy Story by Randy Newman. All right. This is the weekend sit and spin. We do have some amnesty things to talk about today, because that's coming. It's coming, man. He is going to pass this executive order. Did you see that Stiviano girl claiming that Donald Sterling now is gay? She's just going to ride that milk train. See, the money she got from the last settlement is run out.
I don't really care. They forced him to sell his NBA team, which was wrong. It's a big shot against free business in America.
It is, and that's the sad thing about that whole situation from start to finish, that it really shows how we've turned into a culture of if we don't like you, we're going to destroy you economically, socially, and so forth, and call you a racist. All right, it's the Weekend Sit and Spin. Nick O'Kelly, Drew Howard. We'll be right back.
Talk shows, we got sunglasses, we got music, we got fake Rolexes. KineticHiFi.com. Keep it locked in, honey butter.
Your business not going right? Don't know how to advertise? Come holler at your boys right here at Signs to See. We specialize in all your advertising needs. You need t-shirts, business cards, signs, banners. We got it all. Car magnets, decals, flyers. We got it all for you right here at Signs to See. Conveniently located at 937 Wapo Road, Suite 2B. You can also call us at 843-608-0722. You got a family reunion, you got a class reunion, and don't know how to get your t-shirts done? Well, call Signs to See. Signs to See is conveniently located at 937 Wapo Road, Suite 2B. Also, you can call us 843-608-0722. Or you can log on, signs2see.com. And I do all my business with Signs to See.
Do you sometimes think life was just better when I was young? Maybe you're right. You know, there has been a marked decline in girls ages 8 to 14 that participate in Girl Scouting. And today we're looking for girls who are ready to be the leaders of tomorrow. Girls in this age group are vital to Scouting. They serve as role models for younger girls and uplift the community. And ladies, we need you to be that example too. Become a volunteer, a troop leader, or just enroll your daughter in Girl Scouts today. Call 843-552-9910 to learn more.
It's what happens when you cross saucy with awesome. That's right, you're listening to KineticHiFi.com, baby. It's awesome. Thank you for listening to KineticHiFi.com Community Radio.
You let me know everything's alright. I'm hooked on a feeling. I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. Lips as sweet.
Hey, did you see that the guy who was charged was given some gun charges is going to be cleared after he used the Joe Biden defense? Did you hear about that? You remember this guy?
No.
He went out into his front yard and shot his shotgun directly up into the air. And he said it was okay, so I'll read it here. It's Columbian.com. We talked about it a few months ago here on the show. Clark County's prosecutor said Tuesday he will dismiss a firearms-related charge against a Vancouver man who said he was merely taking Vice President Joe Biden's advice on how to defend his property from car prowlers. Instead, the man will be prosecuted for obstructing a police officer. But it was Jeffrey Barton, who's 53 years old, made international news when he told journalists, quote, "I did what Joe Biden told me to do. I went outside and fired my shotgun straight up into the air." So you remember in February of 2013, that's what Joe Biden responded, that Americans don't need to own semi-automatic weapons because a cop blast from a shotgun will scare off intruders. So anyway, the Joe Biden defense, just some interesting trivia there this morning, has worked for one gentleman, even though he's still getting a charge for obstructing an officer. So I don't know if it's any better or not. But I thought that was pretty interesting. Of course, we know that Joe Biden thinks that a double-barreled shotgun is really all you need to be able to protect yourself and your home. As now, I saw a law was being passed this week where body armor is going to be illegal, or they're trying to. There's a bill that's attempting to go through the legislation to make body armor illegal. Did you see that? Of course, that's to be expected, I suppose, as they start to come after our guns. Okay, so I want to get into this amnesty situation because we do, like I said, I expect to see Obama getting into this here as we approach his inevitable impeachment. Breitbart.com reporting Obama considering granting 800,000 guest worker visas as 90% believe American workers should be favored. And it says here, after meeting with a bevy of big business groups, President Obama is reportedly considering granting them up to 800,000 additional guest worker visas via executive actions. And this is according to the AP. Quote, one of the more popular requests among business and family groups is a change in the way green cards are counted, which would, quote, essentially free up some 800,000 additional visas the first year. I love how it's always these accounting tactics where they can just shift something here into this column or shift something here into this Excel column, and suddenly we can, free up 1 million people or free up $1 million or whatever. It continues, in addition, quote, other requests have included removing the requirement that some spouses of U.S. citizens return to their native country for at least 3 years before they can apply for U.S. residency, as well as extending work permits to the spouses of all temporary H-1B skilled workers. The Obama administration is also considering granting work permits for low-skilled industries as well. The administration, quote, has already increased the number of guest worker permits by possibly 100,000 when it allowed the spouses of high-tech guest workers who are applying for permanent residency to obtain permits. Of course, we know that whenever that first rhetoric came out, that was a lie anyway. The whole thing that we need immigrants into this country because we need high-tech labor. I mean, that's bullcrap. We have a shortage of high-tech labor in the high-tech industry as they attempt to put on more regulations to even shut down the high-tech manufacturing. I mean, that's a big part of the problem as well, is all these government regulations that are shutting down manufacturing industry, that are shutting down farming industry and crops. It's almost impossible to be a small farmer these days because they only want you eating genetically modified and genetically engineered food that they put out. I saw an article today, shock, which this is not at all a shock because we talk about it all the time. Genetically modified rice trial reports 3 times higher leukemia risk. That's over 10 students in genetically modified rice trial now have leukemia within a 4-year period. That's crazy. This is from InfoWars, Christina Sarek. It appears that an alleged illegal GM rice trial, genetically modified, on university students in China has led to an incidence rate of acute leukemia of up to 3 times the normal rate in the country. Following the alleged GM rice trial, it was discovered from the Hwasong Agricultural University that over 10 students now have leukemia within a 4-year period. I thought it said 4. 10 students, yes, sorry. The students claimed that, quote, when we entered the university, the school required all students to promote genetic modification upon entering the university. Our teachers told us that the rice used by our canteen is GM rice from the university's experimental base. That's unbelievable, I think. It says normally leukemia among young adults, to put this in perspective, in China is about 2 to 3 cases per 100,000 people. In the case of the students claiming to be fed GMO rice at the university base, the rate is at least 3 times higher. 7 students are on record now as having developed the disease. That's unbelievable. So, I guess basically one thing that's strange about that is that the kids actually kind of signed up to get leukemia. That's kind of weird. Anyway, the point is shutting down industry nationwide. Okay, saying while they're doing that really we need more high-tech workers in this country, and the way that we're going to get it is by bringing in illegal immigrants. So it says, continuing with the Breitbart article, numerous companies like Microsoft and Cisco, this is what I was referencing earlier, have massively laid off American workers while pushing the Obama administration for more guest worker visas at a time when scholars and studies from organizations on the left, right, and center have debunked the notion that there is a shortage of American high-tech workers. That's what I just said. The Obama administration reportedly wants to appease big business interests, so they give him air cover for his potential executive amnesty, which may enable millions of illegal immigrants to get work permits in addition to temporary amnesty. Wow, that loop really does kind of highlight exactly what we talk about so often here, that number one, one, Obama is completely sold out to corporate interests and the stock market. I mean, that's what put him in office. Lobbyists are controlling completely our legislation. The fact that airtime is given to the highest bidder, which in this particular instance is the government trying to push an agenda of amnesty granted executively by the president, who's just, wanting to look like a dictator to these people so that they'll love him and vote for him. And then we're getting more illegal immigrants into the country to help collapse the country because of the buy-in from the big businesses who just get to lower their own wages and kick out the high-paid workers and bring in the low-paid illegal immigrants. All tax-free. Nobody gets in trouble this whole time. I mean, it's really unbelievable. But this is what's happening, and that was kind of my point here, that maybe what we're seeing is just the creation of corporate compounds where they bring in just, droves of illegal immigrants to work on these huge corporate industry companies here in the Silicon Valley or wherever. They basically make them live on the compound, so it's like slave labor almost. I mean, I'm not saying that that's what's happening immediately, but it sure does play into something like that when you see that those are the guys